Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wealth Clock with Stephen Weinstock. I myself have been investing in real estate for over 20 years. Started off with single family, launching my own investment fund, real estate investment fund. We also own some multifamily in various markets. This podcast is not about me. It's about people who are building real results in real time. Today's guest is Brandon Hance. At 22, he raised millions of dollars for his first startup. Since then, he's built multiple ventures, including Audio Life and Good Threads. These are platforms that combine commerce, creativity. What makes Brandon stand out is his mindset. He writes about leadership, identity, failure, family, what it means to create meaning and not just profit. He is a true founder and someone who's seen entrepreneurship as an inside-out journey. Brandon, I am really looking forward to this. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm going to start off. So at 22, I guess you're either middle of college, maybe thinking about dropping out or going to grad school, and you're raising millions of dollars. How'd that start?
Yes, I did graduate. I wasn't a dropout. I probably wasn't smart enough to be a college dropout. I was actually a college football player. I played at USC, and I was fortunate enough to be there for a couple of national championship seasons. And I was an entrepreneur major, and I began brainstorming ideas for a company at the beginning of my senior year. And our coach at the time, Pete Carroll, said, listen, this is going to be your senior year. We're the number one rated team in the country. You should absolutely enjoy every single second. You will have a time for business, but that time is not now. And so I took him up on the advice, enjoyed the laughter in the locker rooms and an undefeated season. On the way back from Miami after we won the national championship, he actually gave me a notepad and said, it's time. Like this, meaning it's time to start brainstorming your idea, planning your future, and taking it from here. So literally on the flight home from Miami, even though I was very hungover, I began sketching out ideas for my first company.
What was the first company? Was it Audio Life? Was it Good
Audio
Threads?
Life. Yep.
Audio Life. Just tell everybody what Audio Life is.
Man, it depends on how old your audience is. But at the time, it was what we ultimately ended up being is a distribution platform for musicians. So MySpace had just come on the scene. That was the biggest thing that was disrupting the music industry and really the beginning of its time from a social media standpoint. We created a widget, and it was the first widget that allowed a musician to sell their music and merchandise on their MySpace profile. And of course, over time, that expanded into a variety of other things that ultimately enabled the same idea for an artist to sell directly to a fan on the internet. So we ended up with 500,000 independent musicians, but then 3 of the 4 major labels used our platform. So we were doing all of the kind of online and social commerce for Eminem, Rihanna, Green Day, Kid Rock, and all of the biggest bands at that time.
So besides playing football, did you have a background in music, entertainment, or in tech, or did you just see an opportunity and ran with it?
I was just a dumb jock that really had no background. I never even had an internship before starting this company. I did read a book called The Operator, which was about David Geffen, and he was an entertainment mogul, and that sounded fun and interesting. So I started studying the music industry, which was being completely disrupted through technology and social media. And I thought it didn't make much sense to start climbing my way up a structure that was fundamentally imploding. So why not come up with an entrepreneurial idea? And I honestly was just too naive to know any better.
What ended up happening with Audio Life?
I sold Audio Life to Platinum Equity and the Gores Group in May of 2012.
Oh, wow. And talk to us about another company called Good Threads.
So when I sold that company, I really had exposure to the nonprofit sector, and nonprofits like Autism Speaks, American Heart Association, American Cancer Society raised the majority of their money from big thons, walkathon, jumpathon, things of that nature. And I went to one of those because my Aunt Carol had recently passed away from breast cancer. So my wife and mom did this walk, and I saw that everybody had custom merchandise. And long story short, a big part of our platform at Audio Life was at the convergence of social media, technology, and merchandising. And we had built a bunch of proprietary technology. So when I sold my first company, I retained rights to use that in the nonprofit sector. And I created a company named Good Threads. We used the proceeds of the sale of Audio Life to essentially capitalize the startup of Good Threads and retained 23 of the top 30 nonprofits in the country, including those that I mentioned within the first 18 months. and then sold that business to Zazzle, which is a billion-dollar portfolio company of Sequoia Capital, at the end of 2015.
When you built these companies, was your plan to sell it to a big private equity, to a larger company?
Yeah, listen, when you raise capital, you have to have an exit strategy. So, you can either go public, you can sell it to somebody, or in theory, own and operate it profitably. Nobody ever owns and operates it profitably. That's just not the way that venture is structured, because you have to grow very quickly. It's very rare these days to go public. And yeah, if you need to create a return to your investors within a reasonable period of time, used to be 5 to 7 years. Now I'd argue 7 is even short. These tend to be decade-long journeys. You're likely going to have to find an acquirer. So I, from a founder standpoint, always wanted to build a game-changing company that I would own and operate indefinitely. But of course, as a fiduciary, I knew that an exit would be an inevitability if we were successful.
So you sold these companies. You are sitting pretty, I guess. You're not worried about next month's rent or money for coffee. What was your next step? How old are you at this point? And what was your next step?
Let's see, I sold my first company in 2012 and seven, probably 28, 29. And then the next one, 32, 33, something like that. And in between company 1 and 2, I began investing with a childhood friend of mine who was basically flipping houses in LA, where we grew up. And he was doing it successfully for the full 7 years that I built my first company. He was doing 4 or 5 deals a year. And I thought, gosh, there's got to be more to this. Like, how do you grow this business? Is there a way to gain a competitive advantage? So investing became advising became part-time. And then before you know it, I ended up deciding to go all in on real estate. I was exploring some other tech ideas, just nothing really quite caught my full passion. And real estate was very interesting to me, because what I saw, at least in his sector, is that everybody in the space was like him. They were mom and pop operators. It was really a cottage industry, over $1 trillion of single family homes in Los Angeles, but all being transacted and built and sold from kind of small time operators. And so I thought if there was an opportunity to bring a more sophisticated approach, maybe we could build a more scalable platform.
Most real estate across the country, across all asset classes, are mom and pop investors for the most part. You might have 10 or 20% on the corporate level where they have hundreds of employees, $1 billion plus of assets. But for the most part, you could have a mom and pop who has a $12 million portfolio with one employee. And I was recently asked on a panel why real estate owners are so behind when it comes to tech. And the reason is because we're so fragmented, and lots of us are mom and pops, where we're not quickly picking the next shiny object. Here you're coming in with a tech background, definitely knew how to raise money. And when you first got involved full time, what was your first project? Did you start continuing flipping houses with this partner? Did you move on to other assets? How'd the first couple of years go?
Yeah, so we stayed in single family. Flips became major addition, quickly became infill new construction spec homes. What I saw from a home building standpoint, if you think of any of the national name brands, Lennar, Pulte, whomever, they're all really built on suburban expansion. And the trend line that was more compelling to me was urban contraction. And LA in particular has a housing stock that over 80% of the homes were built pre-1950. So we have a bunch of post-World War II crackerjack homes in very desirable infill locations. So just that fact pattern alone made me think, God, there's got to be a way to build a next generation home building company that would be focused on infill development. So that was the backdrop that's and the original thesis. I thought in order to really do that, we had to become a vertically integrated company. So I actually got my broker's license, a contractor's license. We hired 6 or 7 software developers to build a platform that ran the entire life cycle of a project through. We really took more of a tracked home builder approach, where you would define 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 model homes and value engineer those, find production level efficiency. And instead of doing it like everybody else, where you wait for a realtor to say, hey, I got a great deal, and then you have to create a new spreadsheet and call an architect and call a contractor, try to figure it out on a one-off basis. We digitized every parcel in the city of Los Angeles and said, okay, we got 6 or 7 models. Where do these exist? And then we ended up going directly to all of the homeowners through direct mail, SMS, email, door knocking, cold calling, you name it. And we're able to offer them an off-market purchase. So if you wanted to sell and you don't want to take market risk or have people walking through your home for open houses or pay dual brokerage fees, this is a great value proposition. So we vertically integrated the platform. We use a lot of technology to do that. And we're really ramping up. We were doing about probably 25, 30, maybe 35 homes a year. So we started in 2017, I'd say, full time. By 2019, we were doing 30, 35 homes a year. These were all like $4 to $7 million homes on the better neighborhoods, west side of LA. And obviously COVID hit. And so COVID hits and our lines of credit were frozen. In Los Angeles, you literally couldn't show a property open house for, I think it was 6.5 months. And I don't know that there was even a single person in the world, certainly not me or anyone close to my company, who was like, single family home buyers are going to go through the roof. This is an amazing time. You should go all in. It was the opposite. It was, let's get the hell out of here, cut our losses, move on. And so that was a very short-sighted decision because we know what happened. Single family values shot through the roof. Meanwhile, we're fire selling around, cutting bait, losing EMD of properties that we had in the pipeline. So it was a really sad, unfortunate time because we were really peaking from an operational standpoint. We raised a ton of capital. And I think we were probably within a year or so from being the largest home builder in the city of LA.
Oh, wow. Wow. So at this point, you're knee deep in real estate, the luxury homes, but it's from what you told me, it sounds like you are selling everything you're buying, meaning you're not, are you buying any cash flowing properties? Are you
Nope.
strictly,
We were
so you're,
merchant builders.
so you're paying taxes, big taxes on a regular basis with all this?
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, in LA, you got to pay all kinds of taxes,
Yeah, sure, sure.
not
But
just income tax.
okay, let's fast forward. Let's fast forward today. Tell us what you're doing today.
So that evolved into, we started transitioning the platform into apartments and more of a long-term build to hold strategy. Again, in the heels of the pandemic, we had almost unprecedented compression of cap rates, obviously very affordable debt. So this is like 21. Very quickly in 22, it began moving in a different direction, which made penciling market rate apartment development very challenging. So we were in some ways pretty desperate to find a thesis that we had high conviction around. It was really difficult to do. The one area, almost ironically, that we found it was around affordable housing. So there's a program in Los Angeles called ED1, Executive Directive Number 1. This is what our mayor, Karen Bass, did on her very first day in office, was essentially create a bundle of benefits that said, hey, this is a huge incentive for private market developers to build affordable housing in the city of LA. And we, for the most part, I'm oversimplifying, went all in on that. So I actually wound down Avenue Homes. I'm still in the process of doing that, but decided to wind it down about 2 years ago and winding up, if you will. Angelino is an affordable housing developer, and that's what we're working on now.
And you're developing houses or apartments that are
Apartment
affordable,
buildings.
and you're holding on to these?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, just to go off topic a second, you mentioned Karen Bass was a boom to your real estate career. As somebody who is not from LA, the only Karen Bass I know is what I heard the last couple of months on the news. I'm glad to hear that she was good for you. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm not, I actually didn't say that exactly in terms of being a boon. I think that there was so many challenges, so many landmines in the field, so to speak, that she did throw out kind of one bone that we did have to pick up and run with. I got a long laundry list of other gripes, but this one idea is one that was pretty compelling.
Yeah, it sounds like a 5 stars thumbs up from real. Okay, good, good. Yeah, I'm born and raised, and I'm sitting right here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm well aware of regulation, housing regulation, and every once in a while we get thrown a bone. We have something called the 421 or 421A, and everyone here in New York loves to talk about it. I myself am afraid of New York. I haven't invested here since '06, and that's a lot tougher since then. But mostly I've been in New Jersey, across the pond over here, and the last 7, 8 years in Ohio and Kentucky, parts of Pennsylvania. But yeah, New York City regulation, they could really make it very tough. So when they, like you said, when they throw one bone or they remove one of the landmines, all of a sudden it becomes a boon.
It does, yeah. And these are multi-year, if not even potentially decade-long investment horizons. And yet the goalpost is being moved what feels like every few months. So it's very difficult to make investment decisions in markets like LA and New York. You're
Got it.
smart enough to be scared and move on. For whatever reason, I'm one of the lonely few that have doubled down and even named the company Angelino as almost a counter thesis because everybody, both GPs and LPs alike, have seemed to have fled Los Angeles. So the sun is still shining and there's a lot of demand. We're probably chronically the most undersupplied submarket in maybe the country. For those reasons and more, we still believe long term, this is a great place to build and hold real estate. But there's no question that in the short term, it's a very challenging environment to operate in.
When people ask me how come I don't invest in New York, I always say that New York and especially Manhattan, that is good investments for extremely talented operators. You got a regulation, compliance, building departments as opposed to other areas where it's collect the rent and if you don't pay, you're out in 45 days. And I always say you have to be very talented to buy in these markets. Here's a compliment. But if you're in LA and you are building and operating apartments and doing okay, you're obviously very talented. I'm really happy to be talking to you. But to make it in LA is definitely something I don't really hear about too much, at least from smaller operators. It's a real kudos to you. It's a real kudos to you.
Appreciate that. And yeah, we all try to build our networks. And I've got a fairly established network of people in LA, of other developers in LA. And we'll get together from time to time for lunch and just commiserate on how challenging it is. And yeah, it ain't easy. That's for sure.
So you're born and raised in LA?
I am. Yep.
Okay, very nice. And what do you do when you're not working? Anything fun? You're binging Netflix, you're scaling mountains. What's your deal?
I've got 3 young daughters. That consumes a lot of my time. They're all very active in sports. I coach a bunch of their teams. We live down the street from the beach, so we're at the beach all the time, mostly family stuff.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, I'm a family man also. I have 7 kids, same wife, 6 sons, 1 daughter.
Wow. No
Yeah.
family vacations for us.
Yeah, we just did one this past Passover, and we actually had to book the tickets on 2 separate locator numbers because it only maxed out 5 or 8 or whatever it was. So that was pretty interesting. And yeah, every airport trip becomes 2 Ubers. Yeah, it definitely takes a village to run my household, and kudos to my wife for that.
Yeah.
You're investing only in LA, whether it was before COVID, after COVID. Have you ever ventured outside of LA or outside of California?
I've not. I've certainly dreamed about it. And I've spoken to smart people like you who have found success in other markets and almost begged me, like, you have no idea how much easier and more profitable and less competitive and the list of benefits. And I believe they're true. So it's not that I think that those are invalid reasons. For me, I honestly just don't know how. So for me, I've mentioned we've digitized every parcel in LA. I know the zoning code extremely well. We have a very robust network of agents. We are the contractor. So I have an entire construction company and my whole team. That's how we gain some advantages that allow us to compete on price just because of our execution capabilities and economies of scale. So I start going through my advantages, which are significant in LA. And in spite of those significant advantages, still have a hell of a time running a profitable business. I think about going into a new market with none of those things. And it just seems, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, you have a lot of New York or Northeast money that started buying in the Southeast, but you have a lot of the big players that, like I said, they're talented and they're staying in New York and they're doing well. I have a friend of mine, a personal friend of mine, who's buying 70, 80 unit buildings in Queens, and he's operating them despite all the regulation, despite everything. I asked him why, how, and he says, honestly, it's what I know. It's my backyard. Similar to what you're saying, this is the area I know. And for me to start over in suburbia USA would be too much of a learning curve. And he says to me honestly like this, he says, it's very bad for landlords here in New York. But if I can make the deal pencil in, if we do get a Karen Bass bone thrown to us, all of a sudden my single becomes a triple or a home run. He's a smart operator. And like I said, the talented ones could do it well in these high regulated cities.
I've seen a lot of, sorry to cut you off. I have seen a lot of people, even LA people, LA developers who have fled for the yields chasing secondary markets and looked like geniuses in 21, 22, and then came back home crying with their tail between their legs in the last 12 to 24 months. Yeah, there's something about being in very large, mature markets that are undersupplied and have almost guaranteed long-term demand that make me feel a little bit warm and fuzzy. And to your point, like if you're playing the long game, at some point along that journey, I have conviction, maybe hope that there'll be a moment of opportunity that I'm grateful that that was our choice.
What are you working on like now? Are you buying a deal? Are you building a deal? Are you focused on just collecting rent or Section 8? What was your 9 to 5 or 3 days ago?
So all of that, right? I'm still winding down Avenue. So we've got about 40 or 50 condos that are on the market for sale. I've got whatever, 4, 5, 6 apartment buildings for sale, another 4, 5, 6 that we're bringing to market to lease up and put perm on. So there's kind of an operating business that's happening there. On the Angelino side, we've acquired 10 properties. We have 2 in escrow. The 10 are all in the entitlement phase. So lots of obviously design and expediting work. Our very first one got approved literally yesterday. So we're going to put our first shovel in the ground on Monday. So obviously getting the financing lined up for that. And we have an institutional capital partner there. So all of the T's crossed and I's dotted to really stand up that platform is a Herculean effort. So yeah, so I'm bouncing between all of those things on a day-to-day basis. And thankfully I have a team, but leading and managing a team is a job in itself.
Did you have any real estate background growing up? Meaning anybody in your family in real estate? Was your
Yeah,
uncle
I mean,
like
my
the big?
father was a real estate agent and been in the escrow business. I don't even know if you know what escrow is in New York, but I think we literally only have it in Southern California. Even Central and Northern California don't do escrow the way that we do here. So I have exposure to it from that standpoint, but nothing about investments or development, construction, or any of the things that I'm directly involved with now.
Yeah, I find a lot of operators that didn't necessarily have the background. Yes, I bump into a few where their parents or somebody in the family, but I see just a lot of investors who are truly entrepreneurs, and they went from a job that even if they liked, or you have a lot of people who became like an accidental landlord. They couldn't sell their house when they were upgrading, they kept it. The next thing they're happy to collect rent and the numbers start clicking and hey, why just one? Why not two? I could leverage OPM, all that stuff. And it actually brings out the entrepreneurial spirit in a lot of people just by simply falling backwards into a piece of real estate. And next thing they're full-time landlords.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. Where do you see yourself in, I don't know, 20 years? Let's see how you take that one.
20 years. So in a shorter time frame than that, we have a big milestone event in Los Angeles in 2028, which is the Olympics.
Ah, okay.
We have a relatively short-term goal to build 2028 units by the 2028 Olympics when the torch is lit here in LA. So that puts us on a pretty meaningful trajectory. We'll see where that trajectory extrapolates beyond that. But for the next 3, 4 years, I think we have our work cut out for us and a pretty clear and ambitious plan.
When your kids are older, are you gonna steer them into real estate or are you gonna let them find it on their own? What's your game plan?
I think my job, amongst other things, with as a father, is to help cultivate passion and then invest heavily in their passion so that they have the ability to create their own dreams and have the skills and discipline to pursue those with all of their might. I could care less if it is in real estate, but I'm sure as hell hope they find something.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good father. Brandon, I had a very good time here. This was a great conversation. I just want to thank you very much for coming on. I know there's a time difference here, but it's what 4 or 5 o'clock where you are in California. I'm here in New York. But thank you very much. I know you're busy. You sound like you're busy, but you were very gracious to come on. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I imagine it's dinner time. You've got 7 people sitting around the dinner table waiting for you.
So I'm actually driving to the Catskills. My family is about 2 hours north for summer break. They're there all summer. I show up for 4-day weekends and come to the office when I have to record a podcast.
Understood. Thank you for making that happen. It was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll be in touch.
Sure. Where can people who are listening follow you, connect with you, reach out to you?
So I literally never posted on social media until about 6 weeks ago. I just started posting on LinkedIn, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been writing on there and enjoying the process. Really haven't spoke much about real estate on there. It's been about leadership and culture and performance and things of that nature, things that are really passionate to me. I don't even know what the handle is. I assume LinkedIn.com/Brandon Hance. maybe you could drop it in the show notes, but that's it. That's the only place. You can give me my email if you'd like.
Yeah, so I'm going to drop everything into the show notes. Yes, I've seen you on LinkedIn. It's been very fun, very engaging. I think now that you mentioned the coach, I did see you posted about that. Am I correct? Was there a picture
Yeah,
of the coach?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did see that. Brandon, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to put all your contact info in the show notes. That's it for today's episode of The Wealth Clock. If you got any value from this, please subscribe, like, forward, share with your friends. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.